Major James Howard pulled his P-51 Mustang into a climbing turn over Oschersleben, Germany. He had just seen the unimaginable. 30 German fighters, a formidable swarm, diving toward the B-17 bombers. He was sworn to protect them, leaving them vulnerable and isolated. For the next 43 minutes, he would fight them alone, with 0 bombers lost under his watch. Born in Canton, China on April 8, 1913, James Howard grew up in a world. Few Americans experienced his unique upbringing. His father, Dr. Harvey Howard, was a missionary ophthalmologist at Canton Christian College. He performed eye surgeries for those who could not pay. His mother, Maud, taught English. James learned Mandarin before English, witnessing firsthand a life defined by service and sacrifice. This early exposure to profound, selfless duty would shape his choices for decades to come. When his family returned to St. Louis in 1927, a 14-year-old James found America. It was a foreign landscape compared to his home. It was a stark contrast to the Chinese city that had been his home. He enrolled at Pomona College, initially planning to follow his father into medicine. But a new passion took hold in his senior year, flying. In 1937, after graduating, he joined the Navy. He earned his wings at Pensacola flight training in 1939. He was assigned to the USS Enterprise, serving carrier duty out of Pearl Harbor. But the peacetime Navy, though competent, felt routine to him. He yearned for something more, something that truly mattered. His opportunity arrived in June 1941 when he resigned his commission. He joined the American Volunteer Group, the legendary Flying Tigers. Before America officially entered the war, Howard flew P-40 Warhawks for China against Japan. Their shark-toothed noses were a fierce symbol in the skies over Burma. Through 56 combat missions and 6 confirmed kills, he learned the stark reality of aerial combat. Life and death hung in every maneuver he made. When the AVG disbanded in 1942, Howard returned to the United States. His combat experience was eagerly sought by the Army Air Forces. Commissioned as a captain, he was given command of the 356th Fighter Squadron. It was part of the 354th Fighter Group, stationed in England. Here he would fly the P-51 Mustang. This new long-range fighter was a turning point in the air war. It was capable of escorting bombers deep into Germany, a feat impossible before. Earlier aircraft like the P-47s and P-38s could not do this. The Mustang offered the B-17 crews something they had desperately lacked. This was protection all the way to their targets and back. Yet even with these advanced escorts, the danger remained. German Luftwaffe pilots were skilled and resolute masters at breaking up American formations. They were isolating the vulnerable bombers with deadly precision. The morning of January 11, 1944, began like many others. Howard led his squadron on an escort mission targeting German aircraft production facilities at Oschersleben. The B-17s of the 401st Bomb Group were tasked with the bombing. Howard's P-51s were to keep enemy fighters at bay. The briefing suggested moderate opposition, nothing the escort couldn't handle. 50 P-51s across 3 squadrons took off at 11:30. They met the bombers over the North Sea before heading east into Germany. At 13:15, the B-17s reached their target. They endured the severe bursts of German 88mm anti-aircraft fire. They dropped their bombs and turned for home. It was then that the German fighters struck. Messerschmitt Bf-109S and Focke-Wulf FW-190S, more than 30 strong, dove from altitude. They came in a full Luftwaffe formation. Howard's squadron engaged and fierce dogfights erupted across the vast sky, scattering the American formation. Howard himself shot down a heavy twin-engine Bf-110, but the engagement separated him from his men. As he climbed, searching for his squadron, he saw the B-17s. They were 3 miles away and at a lower altitude, entirely surrounded. German fighters swarmed them from every direction. No American fighters were visible. The escort had vanished, leaving the bombers isolated. German planes were already making attack runs. B-17s were smoking, falling, their crews facing devastating odds. Standard procedure dictated regrouping, waiting for support, never engaging alone when so heavily outnumbered. But the bombers could not wait. Howard made his decision. Pushing his throttle forward, he dove. It was one P-51 against 30 German fighters. At 13:47, Howard opened fire, his .50 caliber machine guns hammering. Tracers arced out, striking an FW190 as it made a pass on the lead bomber. The German fighter broke off, trailing smoke. The other German pilots, seeing a single American P-51, turned their attention to him. Howard did not run. He turned directly into their assault, initiating head-on passes. Combined closing speeds were over 600 miles per hour, and bullets were flying everywhere. His aggressive, unexpected tactics worked. The Germans, accustomed to lone fighters evading, broke formation and scattered. For 5 intense minutes, Howard fought, diving, turning, and firing. He was keeping the Germans away from the vulnerable bombers. But sustained firing took its toll. At 13:52, his right outboard gun jammed, but 3 guns remained. He pressed on. At 13:55, his left outboard gun jammed, leaving 2. Then at 13:59, his right inboard gun seized. Howard was now fighting 30 enemy aircraft with just 1 machine gun. He kept fighting. Below in the B-17S, the waist gunners and ball turret gunners watched in disbelief. They saw one P-51 alone, diving repeatedly into the German formations. This lone fighter was breaking up every attack run. Major Allison Brooks, leading the bomber formation, later described it as the greatest exhibition. One lone American against what seemed to be the entire Luftwaffe. At 14:05, Howard's last gun jammed. He was out of ammunition, his weapons silent. Standard procedure would be to return to base, mission complete. But Howard did not leave. He remained with the bombers, launching fake attacks. He was diving aggressively at German fighters with empty guns. The Germans, unaware he was unarmed, saw only an aggressive Mustang. They reacted defensively, breaking off their attacks on the bombers. Howard's pure bluff was a masterful act of psychological warfare. For another 15 minutes, he maintained the illusion. He was forcing the Germans to evade him rather than target the bombers. At 14:20, his fuel gauge dropped into the red. He had barely 20 minutes of fuel left. Enough to get home if he left immediately. Not enough if he stayed. He stayed. He kept fighting, protecting the bombers until at 14:30, other American fighters appeared. The scattered escort had regrouped. They saw Howard, saw the Germans, and joined the fight. The German formation, having spent 43 minutes battling one P-51, finally broke off. They lost multiple aircraft and accomplished nothing of value. The bombers were still flying, heading home, undamaged. Howard's fuel was critically low. With barely 5 minutes remaining, he turned for England, nursing his engine. He landed at 15:05, his tanks nearly empty. His P-51 Dingao, Chinese for very good, had just 1 superficial bullet hole. This was located in its tail section. His crew chief inspected the guns. All 4 were jammed, all empty. He had fired approximately 2,000 rounds, exhausting his entire supply. When asked what happened, Howard simply replied, "I seen my duty and I done it." That night, the bomber crew's reports spread quickly. One P-51 fighting alone against 30 German aircraft for over half an hour. It had protected an entire formation with 0 bomber losses. Colonel Harold Bowman, commander of the 401st Bomb Group, demanded to know the pilot's identity. By morning, everyone knew. Major James Howard, missionary son, Flying Tiger veteran, had saved them. The Medal of Honor recommendation moved rapidly through the ranks, endorsed personally by General Carl Spaatz. On June 5, 1944, Spaatz presented Howard with the Medal of Honor in England. The ceremony was attended by his squadron bomber crews and the press. He was the only fighter pilot in the European theater to receive the Medal of Honor. This unprecedented honor was for aerial combat. Howard's story was hailed as one of the greatest of World War II, yet he remained unchanged. He continued to fly combat missions and led his squadron. He was promoted to lieutenant colonel before rotating home in November 1944. He finished the war an ace in 2 theaters with 12 confirmed aerial victories. After the war, he served in the Air Force Reserve, rising to brigadier general. He also pursued a civilian career managing Lambert Field. He was the director of aeronautics for St. Louis. He later founded a successful systems engineering firm. In his 1991 autobiography, Roar of the Tiger, he dedicated just one chapter. This was to the events of January 11th, 1944. He recounted the events with a simple, matter-of-fact tone. Just as it happened, he was just doing his duty. James Howard passed away on March 18, 1995, at the age of 81. He was laid to rest with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. His P-51 Ding Hao was lost later in the war with a different pilot, but its incredible legacy still lives on. The 354th Fighter Group, his former unit, still exists today. Their squadron room is adorned with a painting of Howard's Mustang alone. It shows him diving on 30 German aircraft. It is captioned with his simple, profound words, "I seen my duty and I done it." Today, the Air Force teaches Howard's actions at Fighter Weapons School. It serves as a case study in aggressive defense. When faced with overwhelming odds, the instructors ask, "What do you do?" Most students instinctively say evade, regroup, or wait for support. Then they are shown Howard's example. He attacked, kept attacking. This was even with jammed guns, even with empty guns. He saved everyone. This is not merely survival, this is duty. It is the story of one man, forged by a life of service. In a single dramatic encounter, he defined what it meant to hold the line.